last chance, your last dance, the last chance for love. I'm so sorry to the ghost of Donna Summer. Welcome back to the StillerBros at the movies. And today we are seeing the end of a trilogy that went by really, really quickly in kind of retrospect. Venom, The Last Dance. So, the Venom movies aren't great. No, at best they're pretty okay-ish. Like, it's kind of hard to say that any of them have really been good, but they have their moments, especially when you get Tom Hardy doing weird things that would make Nicolas Cage think, okay, seriously guys, this guy's fucking psycho. It's very, very weird. These are very weird movies on a number of levels, one of which being that these are the most successful so far of the Sony Spider-Verse stuff. They're the most successful of the Spider-Man minus Spider-Man movies that Sony has tried to make since they've been trying to compete with the Marvel Universe. Yes. Now, back when we talked about the last Venom movie, we didn't have any other Sony Spider-Man minus Spider-Man kind of stuff to talk about. Since then, we have had 2 additional movies come out. This is the year of 3 Spider-Man-less Spider-Man movies. But since the last time we talked about a Venom movie, we've gotten 3 different Spider-Man movies that didn't have Spider-Man technically in them. We had 4 Spider-Man movies total, but still. Yeah. But still, But in the intervening time, we got No Way Home, which was teased at the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage, and then it was there for like a 5-second gag. But then, of course, we also have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which wonderful movie, 10 out of 10. We patiently yet humbly await when they finally put out the next chapter of that story. Then we got Morbius, which was one of the most awful pieces of crap to come out since the pandemic, which was the thing that made people miss the pandemic. Morbius was a mistake on like every single front. Like the fact that it was built on the back of Jared Leto getting infected with a weird bat disease. And then the fact that the internet grabbed onto it and turned it into a meme so much that it got some executives in a boardroom at Sony to be like, we can make this the next Rocky Horror. We just have to put it out again and people will flock to see it. And then nobody went to see it because these idiots didn't realize that Rocky Horror is a train wreck with a confetti car, whereas Morbius is rubbernecking a car wreck where you watch the body bags coming out of the wreckage as you pass by. In comparison, however, Madam Web, the next Spider-Man movie that came out, was kind of one of those car wrecks where you'd see that the car is absolutely destroyed, and yet somehow everybody got to walk away unscathed. But you just still feel bad for everyone involved because they had to go through all that crap with the insurance companies and getting a new car, and it's just a hassle and everybody's not happy about it. Meanwhile, the Venom movies are more or less just kind of a fender bender that is so small that you don't even bother the cops or call the insurance company. Yeah. All in all, it's not exactly the best franchise ever, but the fact that they got 3 movies that do well with making money and getting audience reactions ain't nothing. Yeah. So the first Venom movie we already talked a bit about, where it's like, okay, this isn't great, but there are some things that kind of work in it. Like, the music is phenomenal, and Tom Hardy is just kind of doing whatever the hell he wants as Eddie Brock in Venom. The second movie was Andy Serkis pushing it to about on par with the first one, with kind of crazy visuals added on because Andy Serkis comes from a background of motion capture. This third one is going to, I don't know what it's going to do. Yeah, so this time around, the director is Kelly Marcel, who, along with Tom Hardy, is basically an architect of this entire franchise, making her directorial debut. And honestly, I'm just going to continue to say this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Kelly Marcel, despite how much her career kind of hits a bunch of roadblocks since her first movie, still kind of gets at least a little bit of a pass from me, simply because she co-wrote Saving Mr. Banks, one of my favorite movies about talented, creative people making incredible things.
Yes, but then she went and made First 50 Shades of Grey. But then she got brought on to do the Venom films, and that's where she's primarily lived for the last decade or so.
So the fact that she was who they ended up picking to direct the third and final Venom movie it makes sense. Mostly because if anyone is probably ready to do something like this, it would be the woman who wrote all three of these movies.
Yes, and again, her and Tom Hardy have basically been the architects of these and the champions of these movies since the first one, with the fact that her and Tom Hardy co-wrote the stories for the last one and this one.
And all in all, yeah, that's about it. New person behind the camera, who is the same person writing the script, who's been writing the scripts for these things. Tom Hardy is back. Michelle Williams is, for some reason, not back.
Although, based on the end of the movie, of the last movie, that also kind of makes sense. But instead, joining the cast are Juno Temple, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Rhys Ifans.
Rhys Ifans being, by the way, the lizard from the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, and Hugh Grant's Slavish roommate from Notting Hill.
He was also in No Way Home. And, of course, Chiwetel Ejiofor, whose biggest contributions to comic book movies previously was as Mordo in the Doctor Strange movies.
So this is a movie where not everybody in it is a stranger to comic book movies. But then again, Tom Hardy was already Bane before he was Venom.
Yes.
But throughout all of this, they're really building the hype for this movie around the fact that this is the last Venom movie. Tom Hardy has officially said he's not ruling out the possibility of him one day facing off with either Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire or whoever they decide to put in the Spider-Man suit at any point next. He's just saying that this is the last standalone movie for Venom.
Yeah.
And the fact that they made standalone movies for Venom is just kind of interesting.
Yeah. Venom is obviously a very popular character. There's actually 2 comic book runs going right now of Venom.
But it's just kind of weird to see this movie basically being like, oh, we're bringing anti-heroes back, when it's like, this is what they're building the expanded Spider-Man universe around. A lot of the characters that are headlining these movies were villains in the comics originally, but they're the main characters of these movies, so they're basically like, oh, they're anti-heroes, and that gives us an excuse to be all dark and edgy.
And granted, Venom has been an anti-hero in the comics, but at the same time, I don't know how Sony's going to feel when they don't have any more Venom to fall back on, and they have to focus on trying to make the other movies good, because next up they got Kraven the Hunter, which after 5 movies, they're finally letting one of these be R.
Yeah. But it also seems like the kind of R-rated where they were like, okay, let's just throw a lot of blood at it and not like be creative with what we're doing.
No, it very much, no, based solely on the trailers we've seen, it feels a lot like a movie that was shot for PG-13 and then recut to be an R-rated movie.
Needless to say, we are not looking forward to the prospect of Kraven the Hunter or a Kraven the Hunter cinematic universe at this exact moment.
No.
And yeah, Venom is like the only one of these that has worked so far. Morbius was an absolute disaster. Madam Web came and went so fast that nobody even seems to care anymore.
Nope. We have seen most of Madam Web and none of Morbius, and for me, mostly Morbius is just yet another fatal blow to the film career of my favorite Doctor.
Yeah, I guess he's just gonna have to fall back on all the money that HBO is giving him to be in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Ain't it sad sometimes?
Anyway, we've talked way more about movies that are not Venom than we had intended to, so we're just gonna kind of move on and see you after the jump. So, the Venom movies.
It wasn't until the third act that I kind of came to the conclusion that these movies are definitely garbage, but damn it, they are my kind of garbage.
So once again, this movie is just At its best moments, it's kind of nah. At its worst moments, it's kind of blah. But at the end, it all kind of culminates in, well, that was at least an interesting experience.
Like, these movies get so weird, and they feel like they have license to get weird, and they do.
So, I guess we can get into it. First of all, this movie has a lot of exposition.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of mini plots going around.
It literally starts with a gigantic lore dump, and then that lore dump gets repeated like 3 different times throughout the movie so that all the other characters can catch up.
Not to mention, there's a bunch more lore dumps to make up for the fact that there's a lot of new characters in this movie.
And some of those characters, I'm gonna be entirely honest, didn't need to really exist in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think I even remember most of their names.
Like, there's this hippie family that Rhys Ifans' character is the patriarch of, and it's just kind of, and you spend most of the movie just kind of being like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, these characters are mainly just here to humanize Eddie and Venom for an extra scene, and then to just kind of be like cannon fodder for when everything starts going down in the third act.
Yeah.
Like, it would be fine if their characters kind of meant a little bit more, but it's just kind of, why is this here? Like, literally during one of their scenes, and I'm predicting it now, that's going to be in the Honest trailer when this comes out. There's a scene where Eddie is just sitting in the middle of this van and is just saying, why is this happening now?
Yeah. And really the thing that makes these movies what they are is Tom Hardy and his ability to work off of an actor he clearly respects more than any other actor in the world, himself.
We did that joke last time.
Well, we're gonna keep doing that joke because it's really these movies are really just Tom Hardy fucking around with his voiceover, kind of arguing with him.
And the thing is, that's mainly what we've got this time around, because they created a plot reason for Venom to mostly be kept down, because the idea is that if Eddie is for whatever reason in the full Venom suit, then that means that the giant xenomorph clone, which they call xenophages, will find them and immediately, like, the movie presents it as they're jumping around to wherever Eddie and Venom are, but it really just kind of feels like teleporting the way that the movie's grasp of geography seems to be.
Yeah. But at the same time, special effects are really good.
Yeah, the visual effects are pretty good. The xenophages are interestingly designed. Like, I don't think I've ever seen an alien monster that's design is specifically built around eating people and spitting the mist of their blood out the back of its head.
They're at the point where they know how Venom's supposed to look and how he's supposed to act and how he's supposed to move. And again, we're gonna keep harping on this until something happens. The Animation Guild, support them. Do what you can. Watch for what's gonna happening, because they could be going on strike any minute now.
That's kind of the interesting thing, is that this is kind of just yet another Venom movie, which are kind of the better version of the kind of thing that Madame Web was a throwback to, of early '80s, late '90s superhero movies that you kind of let go because we hadn't had the Marvel movies yet to just kind of be like, oh, wow, these things can be huge events.
That's kind of what a lot of these Sony movies have kind of become a throwback to, is back when superhero movies were not so much, were more meh than just expected to be great.
Back when they were a lot less Iron Man 3 and a lot more Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
We still like the first Ghost Rider, fine, but
we're going to talk about this in a little while, but we liked the 2005 and 2007 Fantastic Four movies.
But it's just a matter of the Venom movies kind of feel less like big event movies, like I'm sure Sony wants them to be, and more like these moments in superhero cinema history where these movies were just kind of amongst the rest of the movies that existed, and they weren't a big event that you had to see before all your friends spoiled it for you on social media.
Even though how the third act goes, it does kind of feel like this movie does feel bigger in a way than the first two.
No, in a completely other way, this movie feels like they just kind of were like, okay, we need to run around. We can't do nearly as many cityscape shots, so we're just gonna be in a lot of empty deserts and everything like that because we gotta really blow the budget on this big CGI ending at the end.
Yeah, and Kelly Marcel handles directing well. It's not like the most creative direction. It's very similar to the first two Venom movies, which
I think she's very much just trying to get her sea legs when it comes to directing. Like, there's various moments where, like I said, geography is a little off, especially in some of the more chaotic fight scenes. There's a dance number where it feels like when you should be cutting to like wide angles of the characters dancing, you kind of end up cutting to various different shots to kind of hide the fact that you're not comfortable shooting around the choreography and everything like that. It's not incompetent to the greatest degree. We are very well aware that this is a first-time director who hasn't even directed a short film professionally yet, so in the long run, I'm just glad that she's getting there. I hope that she can kind of get a bigger directorial effort under her belt after this.
I mean, with the Venom movies being what they are and having the success that they've had, it kind of feels like a waste of Sony's potential to not have her, Kelly Marcel, running Sony Spider-Man stuff, and not what seems to be the screenwriters for Morbius, because seen as they wrote Morbius and Madam Web.
But in the long run, Venom: The Last Dance is the end of a trilogy, and as the end of a trilogy, it's very much a final end. Like, every moment that you think of it, it's going to be like, okay, let's open the door a little bit, so that if we want to make more, or we want Tom Hardy to do this or that, we can, and then they just kind of don't.
I mean, that's what it feels like, is that we don't get trilogies that end like this, where it's like, okay, we're done, this is it. Like, this feels like an ending, and it feels like a complete trilogy, and it also feels like we had a journey with these characters, so when we get to the end, it feels kind of earned.
If you've never seen the 50 Shades of Grey movies all the way through, we've watched like video essays on why they're bad and why they're slightly better than the books and stuff like that. So one thing we know, Kelly Marcel definitely ripped off from the end of the first 50 Shades of Grey was definitely the part at the end of this movie where they go through an entire video montage of highlights from the trilogy.
Yeah, and unlike when they did that at the end of the 50 Shades trilogy, we have gone through a journey.
You kind of feel like, okay, a bunch of stuff has happened, where it's like, okay, this was kind of an inconsistent, bumpy ride from start to finish, but it does kind of feel like we went somewhere with these characters.
These characters started somewhere, they moved and evolved, and now they're in a new place.
It was kind of bumpy. Some parts were a little more exposition heavy than others, where we really kind of needed to firm up certain details instead of just kind of pulling stuff out of nowhere. But I think overall, I didn't hate these movies. I'm just kind of, and it's just kind of nice that Tom Hardy got to throw whatever creative juices he had behind whatever the hell this was.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for right now.
Yep.
Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave in the comments what you may or may not have thought of Venom: The Last Dance, and don't forget to tune in next time when...
Let's just play it by ear, and we'll see you guys next time.